Another profitability ratio is the operating profit margin, the denominator of which is also the net sales. Not surprisingly, the numerator is the operating profit or operating income. The operating profit margin or operating profit ratio indicates the percentage of each dollar or peso of sales remaining after all costs and expenses other than interest, income tax, and preference share dividends are deducted. Or in other words, this ratio indicates the percentage of each dollar or peso of sales remaining after deducting the cost of sales or cost of goods sold and operating expenses. Because recall that operating profit is computed by subtracting the cost of sales and operating expenses from the net sales. Now, how much is the operating profit of Elizabeth? We have actually already computed for that in the previous video, since we needed the amount to determine the times interest earned. Remember? We even used two ways to compute for it. The first is the gross profit minus the operating expenses composed of the administrative expenses and distribution cost. That is 8,070,000 minus 3,800,000 and minus 2,500,000 equals 1,770,000. The second way is to add back to the net income of 1,620,000 the income tax, although there is zero in this income statement, and the interest expense of 150,000. That gives us the same operating profit of 1,770,000. Another figure we need for the operating profit ratio is the net sales, 12,120,000. Therefore, the operating profit margin is 14.6%. Or 0.146 is to 1. Like any other profitability ratio, the higher the operating profit margin, the better. Moreover, if the operating income or operating profit is a line item on the common size income statement of the entity, or in other words, if in the presentation of the vertical analysis of the income statement, the amount itself of the operating profit is shown, then it follows that the operating profit ratio can also be found on that common size income statement. Just like in the case of the net profit ratio and the gross profit ratio. However, primarily for lack of enough space, I did not show anymore here the operating profit or operating income as a line item. Hence, we cannot see the operating profit ratio of 14.6%. But if, let's say, in lieu of less expenses, we instead have here less operating expenses, and then under that show these administrative expenses and distribution costs, and then show the resulting operating income or operating profit before writing less interest expense, then the just computed operating profit ratio or operating profit margin of 14.6% would have been shown here. Just like this gross profit ratio and net profit ratio.